In 2000, Frank Kang and some friends were involved in a fight inside a club. Security broke it up and released them in pairs, but the group reconvened in the parking lot. An argument ensued before 3 vehicles hit Causeway Boulevard. During the drive, Kang, or someone from his group depending on which story you believe, opened fire on the victim's car, with one shot hitting his neck and injuring him fatally. Initially, Kang denied knowing anything about a shooting, but eventually admitted to pulling the trigger, claiming self-defense. A jury found him guilty, and now, over 20 years later, he is up for parole and denying being the shooter. Let's take a look, and if you like this video, please consider subscribing for new videos every week.
My name is Frank Kang. My DOC number is 443596.
All right, yes, sir. And you are represented by counsel, and she's here in the room with us this morning. Introduce yourself, please.
Of course, Adrienne Hutchinson, attorney for Louisiana Parole Project, here on behalf of Kang. I'll speak with the board meeting.
Thank you. Let me introduce the other folks who have joined us before we get started, Mr. Kang. We have by Zoom, Mr. Andrew Hundley. He wants to speak on your behalf. Justin Jenkins, Sue Kang, joining us by Zoom, and Linda Kang also. Did you get all the sisters? Sue has checked in this morning, but we're unable to reach her, so we'll keep trying. I'm not sure if she's going to join us or not. In opposition, we have a representative from the DA's office in Jefferson Parish, Mr. Meyer. He'll be speaking at the appropriate time. And also representing the victim, we have his brother, Mr. Min Nguyen, who is here in opposition. And those who've indicated they want to speak, we'll call on them at the appropriate time. First, let me just read some identifying information into the record, Mr. Kang. You are classified as a first felony offender, currently serving a 99-year sentence. Your sentence was commuted from life to 99 years in October of 2022 with parole eligibility after having served 25 years. So your parole eligibility date is March the 4th of 2025. You were sentenced in Jefferson Parish for a second-degree murder conviction. Mr. Kang, is all that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Would you take a moment, Mr. Kang, and I sat on when you applied for a pardon, I sat on that board and heard your story, but would you, for the benefit of my colleagues this morning, take a moment and tell us why you believe we should vote favorably for your parole today?
Yes, ma'am. To this day, I am very remorseful for the pain and suffering I caused the victim's family. I knew Boom on a personal level, and he did not deserve the way that he died. I take a full accountability for my actions that night. I'm just as culpable as the shooter, Dewey. I did retrieve the gun and hand it to Dewey when he asked for it. I just want to apologize to the state of Louisiana, the board members, and especially the victim's family by trying to circumvent the judicial system. It was never my intention. I know there's nothing I can say or do to justify my actions that night. I know I made a lot of bad decisions that night, and I know if I would have just made one correct decision, my life would have turned out so differently. But I cannot forgive what happened to Vung. He did not deserve that. And I think about countless of nights of what I could have done different, and I just wish I never did the things that I did. It's so many things that I want to say to him, because we were never enemies. We never had disagreements. We just had different friends, and it hurts me to this day, especially when I took victim awareness and learned about empathy. I know my pain and my family's pain does not compare to Vung's family, and whatever I felt is 100 times worse for them. And I just try to do what I could best in my life to bring some type of peace to them, because if I could switch places with him, I would. And throughout my incarceration, I try to have my life to be a continuous journey of seeking forgiveness and try to make sincere efforts to make amends. I know I couldn't keep living like this, and I needed to make conscious efforts to better myself. So I took all the courses available to me, and I learned how to deal with my anger, my stress, how I resorted back to, when I was stressed out. I tried to do some type of substance abuse to get my mind away. I learned how to better cope with my problems. I went through all the education that I needed to. And I was able to attend college, got my degree. I became a social mentor. I mentor other people. I became a certified tutor, and I assist at least over 65 offenders to receive their GRDs. But after each night, each day, I say a prayer for boom, and I just made a terrible decision, and I could have prevented this. I admit that. I could have not handed the gun over. I could have played stupid. There's so many different options I could have made that night, and I just kept making the wrong decision one after the other. And each day I do feel that pain.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Kang. Let's ask the captain, what can you tell us about Mr. Kang?
Frank's basically the epitome of what this program is designed to do. He came here prior to being here. He only had 3 disciplinary reports. He's been here over 9 years. Has gotten himself through a lot of difficult situations with our program, has made it up to a very trusted position in our program, and has a solid plan of, if he is paroled, to continue being a productive member of society.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate your input. We will hear from the folks that want to speak in support. First, we'd like to hear from Mr. Hundley.
Good morning, Andrew Hundley, appearing on behalf of Louisiana Parole Project to inform the board that Frank Kang is a client of our organizations. If he were to be granted parole, he would come to our residential reentry program once his PED date would arrive, and he would have access to be a long-term client in our program where he would take part in our life skills programming, be assigned a case manager, be given an assessment by our social work staff, social worker, everything that comes along with being a part of the organization. I should note that I have a personal stake in this because I've known Frank for about 24 years, I believe. We were both very, very young men. I'd like to believe we're still young men, but we were much younger men almost a quarter century ago at David Wade together. Frank is someone who what you see is what you get as far as what you see with his record. He's always been someone who strives to be the best and put himself in the best position he could be within the prison. And based on what he's accomplished and where he's gotten himself today, we feel really confident that he's not just someone who would come home and not go back to prison, but actually be an asset in the community. I don't want to totally speak for him, but he has some ambitious goals, as a lot of people do who are coming home. I think what separates him is he's someone that has the capacity to meet those goals that he aspires to have. I should note that as you're aware, Frank's a few months away from his PED. It is Frank's desire, if he's granted parole, to be allowed to go to work release for the remaining time on his sentence. He has some skills and an opportunity to go into a work release where he can further those skills that would benefit him for when he comes home with some of the goals he has. Obviously, I'll let the board flesh that out some more, but I just wanted to go ahead and put that out early on, that it is his desire to finish his remaining time on work release if the board grants his parole, and then he would come to Louisiana Parole Project where he would be a long-term client. He has no desire to return to Jefferson Parish and reside there, but to rebuild his life in a new community. And I'll stand by for any other questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We do see that Ms. Sue Kang has been able to join us. Could we hear from Ms. Sue, please?
Good morning. I'm here with my parents. They're behind me. I don't know if you can see if they're blurred out, but I would like to say a couple of words on behalf of my brother. My name is Sue Kang, and I'm speaking on behalf of my brother, Frank Kang. I've known Frank for 42 years, and I've seen firsthand how much he has changed and grown over time. I feel confident in speaking to the character and the journey Frank has taken since his incarceration. Growing up, Frank was always a quiet, sensitive boy. I remember moments from our childhood, like Halloween, when he would hide behind me, too afraid to go through the haunted houses. He was surrounded by a close-knit family of 4 women, myself, my 2 cousins, Lucy and Sonia, and our sister Linda. We shared a special bond, and this strong family support system has remained unwavering throughout Frank's time in prison. Lucy, Linda, Sonia, and my parents consistently visited him, and I always make sure to visit him when I'm in town. Frank has always been a studious individual, and despite the circumstances of his incarceration, he has remained focused on his education. He was on the verge of graduating as salutatorian of his high school class and was excited to begin his college education at Loyola University Chicago in the fall of 2000. Unfortunately, he found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time, which led to his current situation. During his time in prison, Frank has not only earned a bachelor's degree with an impressive cumulative GPA of 3.98, but he has also dedicated himself to helping others. He taught GED classes to fellow inmates, served as a mentor in the re-entry court program at Angola, and achieved trustee status, eventually earning a transfer to the police state barracks in Zachary. These accomplishments reflect his commitment to personal growth and helping others along the way. Frank has evolved from the quiet, sensitive boy I grew up with into a patient, respectful, and humble man. In his spare time, he enjoys reading and writing and authored a fiction novel titled Awakens. His determination, maturity, and self-discipline speak to the person he has become. He has paid his dues and is ready for a second chance. I believe that Frank's transition back into society would be a smooth and successful process with the ongoing support of his family and friends. He has earned his place among us again, and I wholeheartedly support his opportunity for parole. He is a good man who has shown great potential, and I know he will continue to make positive contributions to his community and his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those remarks. And we have Mr. Justin Jenkins. Could we hear from you, please?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning. I'm Justin Jenkins. I met Frank in January of 2015 when I entered the prison system at Angola. I was in the reentry program under Judge Knight and Saint Tammany, and I was scared when I got there. And so me and Frank, we're close to the same age and we're a lot alike, and he helped me to see that there was really nothing to be scared of, and it's just like living on the outside. And ever since I've been released from Angola in 2017, we stayed in touch. During that time, we became very close, not only as mentor and mentee, but we became friends. And one thing I noticed quickly about Frank is he never let his situation define him as a person. He would get up every day with a smile on his face, determined to be a better version of himself every day. We would work out together. He would teach me that your physical health is just as important as your mental health, and that's all part of, just being a better person. I can count numerous times when Frank has pulled me back from the edge because I was struggling with a drug addiction when I entered Angola. And, you know, many other things that happen while you're incarcerated cause stress that you wouldn't normally have on the outside. So Frank would pull me back from the edge and, you know, talk me down. And I'm very thankful for that because he helped me make it through my program so I could come back home and be a better person. Frank was a GED mentor, and there were so many people in our program who had zero education, and he would spend countless hours tutoring these guys who literally had 5th and 6th grade educations and helped them get their GED. Me and Frank, we've talked about support for when he gets out, and I have a lot of connections with employers, and my job is actually about to start hiring soon. So he has a support system in my community. I live in Washington Parish now and work for International Paper. But if Frank were to be released on parole, he definitely has me as a support system. And I just wanted to say that people like me, we get chances a lot being drug offenders. I'm not a first-time offender. I'm a fourth-time offender. And I've been incarcerated and turned loose. The recidivism rate for lifers is so much lower than it is for guys like me. So I just hope that Frank can get a chance today. Thank you.
All right, Justin, well said. Thank you for taking the time to share that information with us. We appreciate it. Now, we'd like to hear from Ms. Hutchinson. Thank you so much for the brief that you gave us. It was very thorough and informative. So if you could just tell us whatever it is you'd like us to know today.
Thank you, Board. Frank comes before the committee today with parole eligibility after receiving a unanimous recommendation for clemency by this board. At that hearing, the board agreed that although Frank was not the actual shooter, his culpability obviously remained the same by law as a principle. Frank understood. He lives with that guilt daily, as he's described. He knows his actions caused harm by giving the shooter the gun and for the death of Miss Gordon. But the board at that time felt that Frank was due some relief. And at just 18 years old at the time of the crime, the board articulated that they understood the considerable amount of pressure Frank was under to take responsibility for the crime, and his lack of maturity at that age. The board commended him for his institutional record, which has only grown since that hearing. Today, it includes still just 3 disciplinary infractions over 24 years, a GED score in the top 20% of test takers in math and science, a horticulture and landscaping diploma from Louisiana Tech, a bachelor's degree in business administration from Thomas Edison State College, with an induction into the International Honor Society for Business. He's been a participant and facilitator of the reentry program. I mostly appreciate Justin for showing up to give a face to that program and what it does for people. Frank was a part of this program before he had parole eligibility. He was still just a lifer. Teaching 100 hours course, which covers victim awareness, personal development, decision-making, problem solving, and more. He was a member of the Asian American Cultural Society at Angola, building unity within that community. As you saw, he was an educational tutor. Those certificates are in Exhibit 6. His speech, and he gets a little wordy, but that's his Toastmasters in him, and he has all those certificates, I think, in Exhibit 9. He's been a consistent member of a substance abuse program, and he's volunteered when time is permitted. He's a part of the trusted few that are housed at Louisiana State Police Barracks, and his job assignment is extremely trusted. His little tiger score encompasses in it not that he is educated, has job skills, family support, and a strong reentry plan. Again, Frank is a first-time offender, and he's made tremendous strides. And as LPP has stated, we're prepared to assist him long-term. Even though he was not technically a juvenile offender, Frank was still in high school. He was only 18 at the time. So his integration services with us would look the exact same as everyone else, but we would treat it like a juvenile offender just because his age at the time. He's tackled his sobriety and worked on being a really good person. building trust. He has and will continue to apologize for his crime and all the lies that he told afterwards. The board will see that Frank poses no threat to public safety and will truly be an asset, like Andrew said, in the community. His education, his knowledge, and his drive, he could be a success. As always, I'm available for any questions the committee would have. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you see the potential in Frank to be great in our society and provide you with second chance.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Meyer, we'd like to hear from the DA's office, please.
Good morning, Randall Meyer, Assistant DA, Jefferson Parish. This is kind of a tough case for me. Generally, I look not only do I look at the facts of the case of the crime, I also look and give a lot of weight to what individuals have done while they've been incarcerated, working to better themselves. But it's also a pretty easy case because in this particular instance, Mr. Kang continues to not be totally honest with this board. He stated in his statement that he's never was it his intention to deceive the justice system, and that's completely contrary to the facts. Many years after the verdict, he began stating he lied in his trial testimony that he shot Vaughn in self-defense, and the plan was that he and Mr. Hong made a deal the night of the murder that because Mr. Kang had no record, had a family with money, that he would get a lesser sentence, and that Mr. Hang, the shooter, would get a lighter sentence because he had a criminal record, but he would get a lighter sentence because they're going to deceive the system. So that's what they did. And Mr. Hang pled to manslaughter and was sentenced to 12 years in 2001. So he's now out of jail, and he was the shooter. Now at trial, Mr. Kang testified that he was, it was a self-defense case, and that he shot because it was in self-defense. So now here we are. Mr. Kang continues to state, continues to not be truthful with the board. Never his intention to deceive the justice system. But as a result, what he's doing is just that, and he's looking now to get his life sentence. He got it commuted to years plus parole eligibility. Now he's looking to get out of jail after 24 years. And his initial intent with his deal with Mr. Hang, however you say his name, is going to come to fruition if this board lets him out today. His continued deception of the system must not be rewarded, and we think he should be denied parole today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. For the record, we also have opposition in the record from the Attorney General's office, and the victim's brother also, Mr. Min Ling, is also in opposition. So at this time, we'll go back to Mr. Kang. Mr. Kang will start our interview process with you, and your case has been assigned to me. I just have a couple of questions. Why did you plead guilty?
I plead guilty because
You didn't plead guilty.
I plead guilty because when I guess I got to start from the beginning.
Yes.
I pleaded guilty because in the beginning, when I was in the car and Dewey shot the person, he turned around to me. At first, he was saying, "This is how you handle your business. This is how you handle your business. You see what I do?" He said that nobody's gonna mess with us. Nobody gonna mess with us. And when after the shooting, he turns around and said that, "Look, I did this for us. Now you have to do this for me." He was saying that you know who we are. They know who we are. And if it comes down that your parents got money, you're very educated, they're gonna believe you instead of me. So when everything was done and we got to Dewey's house, I said I was gonna go home, and he was like, "No, you gotta stay here with me. You can't leave." He said, "We gotta get our story straight." I just wanted to leave from there. So he made me stay. And when I stayed, we went to James's house. Then when James came pick us up, Dewey would tell like, yeah, if the cops pull over, tell that Frank did it. Frank was the shooter. So as we went to we got pulled over by the police, and we was in the police station. They kept me and Dewey together. Then, and at the station, the police officer says that, we believe you did this in self-defense. And do you know what manslaughter is? And I said, no. He said, carry 0 to 40. He means that 0 means that you won't do no time in jail. So in my mind, the whole time, I was so selfish and I was not thinking about nobody else. I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to go home. And I felt like when he said that they was gonna believe me, and I gave that statement. And the whole time I was in jail, my lawyer told my parents, if you pay me such and such, he's gonna win a not guilty verdict. So that's why I went in there and I said I did it. And as I look back, the main reason why I did it was because I was so selfish. I couldn't think anything but myself. If I said that, if I would have told the truth, I felt like I still would have done time. Like, I was supposed to go to college, but I just wanted to go home. And if I said, okay, I was with them, I felt like I still was going to go to jail. And the only option was left for me was to get a non-guilty verdict to go. It was just a terrible mistake, more than terrible. I know every reason that I did, all my actions were wrong. I should have just told the truth. I should have been mad. But I understand it was my selfishness that I just wanted to go home. And I felt that was just the fastest way. And that is my sole reason why I've said that I done it.
Okay. And let me just clarify. I did ask you why you pled guilty. What I meant to say is, why did you confess? Because you were found guilty by a jury. And you've explained that to us just now. Thank you. So you mentioned that you have taken substance abuse. Were you a drug user?
I'm a crazy. I had tried ecstasy maybe 3 times, 4 times, but right before I got 2 denial letters to early college acceptance letters, and that was made me reach out to the guys because they're like, well, I want to go relax. So that's why I made that phone call to James to come on, see what was going on. And he was like, oh, just come, let's just go to LSU together. See, if I would never made that phone call, I wouldn't even been at that club that night. So I feel like one of the triggering effects was that when I got the denial letters from colleges, that's what I wanted to do, was like do drugs and drink to wash away my worries and my stress.
Okay. So let's move on. It was mentioned earlier that you wanted to try to do a work release or transitional work program, and that you had some very ambitious goals. Would you tell us what your goals are? Tell us about that.
Yes, ma'am. As I planned, I separated it into 3 areas where I think is going to be beneficial to me. The first area is going to deal with community. So when I'm released, if the board grants me parole and I'm released, I'd love to go to the parole project and get involved with their organizations and volunteer whatever they need me to be. If that be at youth risk, to talk to them, go to church, cut the lawn for the elderly, feed the poor, cook for the poor or the homeless. That's one area. The second area is my family. To spend time with them. Like I told you, I was very selfish. I only thought about myself. I neglected my parents that worked so hard. One thing that when I came to prison, I never told my mom and dad I loved them until I got incarcerated. And I just want to expand how much I appreciate them and just spend enough time with them. And finally, for my employment, my big plan is to start a food truck or a restaurant that focuses on Asian American cuisines. And before that, I know that I had to get experience in the workforce, especially in food industries. And if the board grants, I'm in Tulsa West Baton Rouge transitional work release, and they are planning locate a job for me in food service industry, and I'm gonna maintain that job when I'm released in March, and I'll be I'll be fully employed in a job that I want to do when I transition to the parole project in the food industry.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you you gave a lot of thought to it.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any other questions of Mr. Kang. I'll defer to my colleagues. Any questions? Any questions?
I'd like to call for executive session, please.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Tillis for executive session. Could you do the roll call?
Who's second?
Second by Ms. Ledoux.
Yes. Mrs. Tilly?
Here.
Ms. Renassa?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledoux? Yes.
All right, Mr. Kang, we're going to be in executive session for just a few moments to discuss confidential matters. Stand by. We'll be right back. All right, we have a motion by Mr. Tillis, second by Mrs. Ledoux to return to regular session. Is there any objection? Hearing no, we're back in regular session. It's 9:40 a.m. Mr. Kang, we are prepared to vote. And I'll vote first since your case was assigned to me. And, I voted for you back in October of 22. I was impressed with you then. I remain impressed with you today. I do appreciate, though, the opposition that has been expressed in the record by the Nguyen family and also by the DA's office. But I maintain my vote. My vote today is going to be to grant your parole after completion of a work release program, as you've indicated you want to do. I would also add special conditions that once you are fully released, that you do report to the parole project for their transition plan, that you do not reside in Jefferson Parish ever, and that you do perform community service work at least 8 hours quarterly. Mr. Close.
My vote is to grant also, and I concur with Ms. Renatza. I hope that you keep up the good work.
Mrs. Ledoux.
After reading nearly 300 pages of your report and considering all of the elements, my vote today is to grant parole with the same conditions Ms. Renatza imposed upon you.
Good luck, Mr. Kang.
Thank you so much.
Sounds like Mr. Kang hasn't taken full responsibility for his actions. This must frustrate the victim's family. Was Mr. Kang's initial sentence long enough for his participation in this senseless crime? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, folks.